So welcome back to our first lesson, and in this I'm going to be just showing you the different things that you need to actually make your leather piece. So on the table here we have stiffener, because we're going to be blocking first of all with felt. You always need a base under your leather, something that's quite strong and sturdy, because you can't just block with the leather because it won't stay in place. You'll need something sturdy to go underneath it. So it's best, you can block with buckram, you could block with cinnamate, but that's a bit thin. So buckram you can block with because that's thicker, but preferably block with felt. And I like velour felt. So this is my small piece of velour felt that I'll block over first. We'll do that together, and then I'll be showing you about the leather. Now the leather needs to be reasonably thin, but anything much thicker isn't really going to work. So this here, if I started using this sort of leather, this is much thicker and it's going to be a lot harder to work with. And this one here, which is like a snake skin, it's a faux snake skin, but it looks like snake skin, but this one is much thicker as well. Also, you have to look out for your imperfections. So this one's got a big hole in it, it's got a little bit of a hole here. I mean, this is a natural fibre, so you're going to find dents and holes and scratches, and you want to pick the best bit for you. So in this one here, which is much thinner, which is easier to use, it has a little hole here, has a few here, but most of it looks all right. Look, it hasn't got any blemishes. I wouldn't use suede either, because if you're using suede with water, you could mess the suede up. It doesn't really like water. You could get different levels of colour on there. Some bits will go darker than others. So use normal leather. It has one side which is more rough, matte, and then the other side, which is your leather shinier side. You also get like snake skins. You can get ray skins. All sorts. You get crocodile skins. You could get, I think this one is quite good. You know, a sheep skin or a thin cow skin or a goat skin is nice, but make sure it's sort of thin. And if you get it from millinery places, then you should be all right, because you know that they're using them on millinery. So we're going to work with that leather. But first of all, we'll need to block the felt. Now I've got here a button one. You might think this is easy, but it's actually quite difficult to do a button one. Same when you're using cinnamate or anything else, you're pulling it around, and then you're going to have little wrinkles when you come to this section, because it's not flat, so it's got to actually go from a flat piece, and it's got to bend slightly on the sides here, and then bend in underneath as well. Excuse my voice, I had a bit of a cold last week. So this has to shrink. So really, you've got a flat piece, and it's having to shrink its way across here, and then shrink even further inside. So you're going to be pulling it and steaming it, but you might end up getting some little sort of folds and pleats in it. It's better to have lots of little folds than one big fold as well, because then you're going to see that. But really, we want to stretch it all underneath so that you can't see any folds at all here. Push it inside. You might see some little folds inside here, but that doesn't matter, because you're going to put something inside there, like a petersham or something. But this is a more difficult one to pull it around. This one here that I've got is a little bit flatter. It's a flat button base, but still it's got a flat side here. So that would be a little bit easier, but still difficult to get it over there. But, this is the second thing you'll do. I would make it on an easier block and then do it on one of these slightly more difficult ones after. Another thing you could do is with our crown blocks, the normal ones that I use with, what we've used for our felt, what we use for our ascot underneath, that normal crown felt, which I'll get it for you, just have a look. This one, you could block it on here quite easily because it's quite flat. So if you have a felt or buckram underneath here, and then you put your leather on top and stretch it, then you'd just be using a side of it, and that'd be much easier. So you could do that as well. But this one here, which is a little bit flatter, I mean, it's got a curve, but once we pull it underneath, and that's it, then we're just going to be pulling it to here. We don't have to also pull it into this side, because it doesn't matter if this side's a bit wrinkly, because that's the underneath. So as long as we get it all flat on top here. This is a little eye drop shape. If you would like one of these, I can get them for you. You can order them from me, so I just need to order them in. So if you'd like one of these, it's quite a nice little eye drop shape. This one with this wood, it's a little bit cheaper than this wood, which is I normally get it from Guy Morse Brown, so this one's from Guy Morse. This one's from another company, which I could get for you. So that's quite a nice eye drop, and it's a darker wood. So that one is one we're going to be working with. So you need blocks, you need leather, you need felt, you need a bag or cling film to put over your block. You need a kettle, so we're using that for the steaming of the felt. Then we need scissors for later. We need to put stiffener inside the felt. So this one is a felt stiffener. You could use your water-based as well. I just prefer the smelly old felt stiffener, but it's up to you what you prefer and what you'd like to use. I use a brush as well. I need some tape for later, for when I put my wire on, because I can either sew it on and just overlock it, or I can put a bit of tape on it just to seal the end and then sew over that. So whenever I do a button one, I use tape because I'm putting the wire inside. If I use this one, then I'm just going to overlock it myself because it's not going inside and I can see the wire, and it doesn't matter because I'm covering it with an edging. With this one, I'm not covering it with an edging. So I need to seal the wire, as you've seen before in the button one, seal the wire and then sew over it, because I can't overlock it lots because I'll see the overlocking on this side. But with this one, it doesn't matter how many times we overlock it because we'll cover it in a Petersham or in another piece of Cinema, depending on what fabric we're using. So you've got the wire, then we need blocking pins. I always use these red blocking pins. Put that down there so you can see it. Thread you'll need, elastic later on to get the piece on your head. You might need fabric if you want to put a lining in. Also you'll need Petersham, which I don't have on my table. You've all seen Petersham before, so you know what I mean with Petersham. And a tape measure. And we've got an extra bit of felt later on, in case we don't want to damage this if we're putting any pressure on anywhere. So if we're fixing anything down or pushing anything down and we're using clips or anything, we've got a little bit of felt, but I'll show you that later. Oh, and lastly, wire cutters. You'll need those as well. So that should be everything that we need. There, so the first thing we're going to do is get your block. Use whatever block you've got at home. Putting my plastic on there. So use whatever block you've got at home. And then we're going to steam. So I'm going to turn the kettle on and then we're going to get on with blocking that quickly, and then I'm going to show you the next thing to do with your leather.